Hi, everyone. Welcome to Interchange. I'm Dan Jones. Thank you so very much for joining us. Most people agree this is going to be a very close presidential race, and the race for the U.S. Senate here in Wisconsin is also too close to call. We'll talk about both of those contests. We'll talk about the problems this week at Milwaukee's Bayview Middle and High School, which led to 30 of the kids being arrested, and we'll talk about the death of Newsweek magazine as we know it. Does print media have any future at all? Let me introduce our guest today. We have Joel McNally, longtime newspaper columnist. You know Kevin Fischer, former broadcast journalist, political analyst, oftentimes a fill-in host over on WISN Talk Radio. And Denise Callaway, community affairs and public relations professional. And of course, Gerard Randall, education consultant and local job creation expert. Rick Horowitz will be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, let's talk first about the presidential race. Some polls have President Obama ahead by a few points. Some have Romney ahead by a few points. They had their second debate this past week, and I think both men looked pretty strong. You have to wonder if there are going to be any major events in the next 2.5 weeks that would dramatically change things, Gerard. Can you see anything happening all of a sudden, or is it just going to stay close and get closer and closer?
I think it's going to get closer. The Monday's debate will be interesting because that's on foreign policy, and both candidates, I think, will be looking to avoid any slip-ups. The numbers who will watch will probably be down slightly over the numbers that watched the second debate, but I think what it's done, it's given folk an opportunity to see the candidates unfiltered. That's been appreciated. It also gives people an opportunity to take a little bit more time to think about what issues are most important to them and which of the two candidates they think will best meet their vision of what America should be. It's funny, I was in a barbershop and one of the guys in the barbershop said that if the president doesn't win re-election, that a lot of moms won't be putting out really good meals on Thanksgiving Day, so he wants him to win. I thought that was a nice little bit of levity, but the seriousness of it is...
Well, the levity is that you were in a barber shop at all.
I had needs.
I'm sorry, go on.
But the seriousness of it is that there are a lot of people who I think in my lifetime have probably watched this election, paid more attention to this election than many the other elections in the past that I've probably followed in the last 45 years.
You know, we were saying a few weeks ago, debates don't really make that much of a difference. But this year, you wonder if it does. I mean, everybody seems to be watching all the debates.
It was very bizarre to me, what you just said, because before the debate started, everyone said, you know, debates hardly ever change anything. And I think that's generally true. But boy, in the polls, that first debate certainly did. I mean, going into the debates, Obama was widening his lead. Republicans themselves were, ready to commit a hara kiri. Thought that Romney didn't have a chance. And after that first debate, because for reasons I can't explain, the president, as he said, focused more on the second debate, like the rest of America, because he wasn't really focused on the first one. I understand, I think I know now what the president was trying to do in that first debate, which was act presidential. He was the front runner. He didn't want to mess up, and he just wanted to be above it. It's really hard. I've really come to this conclusion. It's hard to debate Mitt Romney. He sometimes changes his positions in mid-sentence. He will deny things that he's been debating, that he's been campaigning on and saying publicly. The other night he said he absolutely was not in favor of employers being able to deny contraceptive coverage to women in their insurance. The next day on talk radio, he said, well, of course I support the Blunt Amendment, which would allow employers to deny contraceptive coverage to women. So he really will say and do anything. You can't keep up with everything. You can't correct everything he says that's in conflict with every other thing he's ever said.
Do you think both candidates look good the other night? Yeah.
I think they both look good. I think one of the things that was really striking to me, well, there were a couple of things. One was how the president was still able to be very presidential while having this discussion, this debate with Governor Romney.
And aggressively
challenging him, but doing it in a way that didn't interrupt, didn't cause him to be called out inappropriately. So I was struck by that. The other thing that I was really struck by was what a lot of women who I know have been talking about, and that's the whole binder full of women discussion. But that to me was kind of symptomatic of, I think, the problems that Governor Romney has with women. It wasn't just that apparently you don't know any women, so you couldn't have found them on your own. You had to have these binders full of names. One of my friends said it sounded like an escort service.
Yeah.
But the other thing about it was his definition of what was important to women in the workplace. That there be flexible schedules so you can pick up your kids at school and then rush home to make dinner. I don't know many women who say, I want to work 10 hours a day and then rush to go get my kids and then rush to put dinner on the table. And I think that's my ideal of the way I want to be treated and my expectations for my personal and professional growth in the workplace.
Wasn't Romney trying to make the point that a woman could work in his administration and still have a family?
But, Dan,
Bindergate, the question is to me.
But let me just say this.
The whole
Flex
Bindergate
schedules
controversy is a
15 years
nothing
old.
burger.
It's 15 years old.
It's nothing. It's the sign of a desperate campaign. You'd have to be totally brain dead not to understand what the governor meant when he used that term. And the news came out, I believe, that night that 10 of his top 20 administrative positions when he was governor were filled by women. That's a pretty good record.
It was a good binder, apparently.
You want to talk about the war on women. Talk about 780,000 more women are unemployed since this president took office. Talk about the fact that in his own workplace, male staffers in the White House earn 11% more than female staffers. So I'll have the debate on the war on women anytime. I thought both candidates were feisty and aggressive on style, but style, this isn't a chorus line where you're auditioning for a Broadway play.
You said it was the first time.
On substance, Romney hit it out of the park about 50 minutes into the debate when he, with precision-like fashion, took apart Obama's record. He said he'd lower unemployment rate to 5.4%. It's just under 8%. He said he'd cut the deficit in half. He's doubled it. He said he'd reform Medicare and Social Security. Hasn't done it. He said he'd have an immigration plan. There is none. 23 million people out of work. 1 out of 6 on poverty. 47 million on food stamps.
Didn't he also say that the president never said terror when talking about Libya? And that was wrong too?
Can't talk about it. And he doesn't say a word about what a second-term agenda would look like.
All right, let's go local. Tommy Thompson and Tammy Baldwin had their second debate for the U.S. Senate this week. Baldwin certainly looks stronger than she did in her first outing, but you have to wonder if she's going to be effective painting Thompson as this outdated politician. She's certainly trying. I mean, over and over, she kept saying, when you were governor decades ago.
Well, I would like to say two things, and if possible, without being interrupted or talked over. 2 weeks ago, we talked about this race. Kevin made an outrageous statement that Tammy Baldwin had voted against honoring the victims of 9/11. I said that night it was ridiculous, but I didn't have the details. That actually comes from a right-wing website, a discredited right-wing website.
Those are the congressional record.
Which, in fact, obscures the fact that Tammy Baldwin, on the 5th anniversary of 9/11, got up on the floor of the Congress and made a speech honoring the victims of 9/11 and the heroes of 9/11, but pointing out that the Republicans had added to the resolution offensive, provisions, including praising the destruction of civil liberties under the Patriot Act, praising punitive anti-immigration policies that, as Tammy said, they knew Democrats could not support. This is like a Republican trick to say, you guys voted against honoring 9/11 because you wouldn't vote for these corrupt Republican policies. Second thing, last night at the debate, I think the story that should be the story talked about all over Wisconsin today, it was buried in the Journal-Sentinel, is that while Tommy Thompson was criticizing Tammy Baldwin's votes on Iran, he actually owned stock in Iranian companies, including one that has been mining for uranium that could be used in nuclear weapons. And guess what? Yesterday, right before he went to the debate, he sold the stock in these Iranian companies. The fact that he was going to be called out for it, he knew this wasn't in a blind trust. It was no secret, the stocks that he owned. But as a matter of fact, You know, when he said, I sold him today, there was laughter in the audience, and there should have been. This is a big story in Wisconsin, and so far it's been buried in the Milwaukee
But
Journal-Sentinel.
is it fair or not fair to say that all people who have mutual funds, most people have
These
no
weren't- wasn't a
idea?
It wasn't a
fund.
mutual fund. It was actual stock. I think that the problem that the governor has are two problems. Number one, he's not the Tommy Thompson that he was in the 80s and the 90s. He's not. He's become much more right, not to the center, and he had to do that. It's the same problem in many ways that Governor Romney has. He had to try to move to the center because he had to go so far to the right to come out of the primary. And he's not the same Governor Thompson. He's not that people remember in the 80s and the 90s. And I think that as people see these debates, as people hear what comes out of them, they hear that this is not a man who sounds like he's a centrist, or certainly more of a centrist, than he was as governor. He just is not. He still seems as if he really is hanging on to that effort to still try to pull the far right in, and he's not able to move to the center. He's not the same politician that he was. The other thing that's important to remember about this state is that this is not the same state that it was in the 80s and the 90s. It's a state that's much more Latino and African American than it was. It's a state that has voted for Democrats for president. And it's a state that I think the reason as a state we find ourselves kind of purple rather than blue or red is because we want to see politicians who are willing to move to the center. And that's not something that the governor has done in this election.
But as time goes on, in the last few weeks, it looks like Thompson is gaining ground, not losing ground.
I would stack Tommy Thompson's 14-year record as governor up against Tammy Baldwin's 14-year record in Congress any day. And he will always come out the winner in that. The shift that Thompson may have had to make in coming from the right to the center versus Baldwin's shift from the left to the center, she still has a long, long way to go, and he may have accomplished his aim in reminding people of his efforts to work with Democrats, to work across the aisle, to put forth proposals that had broad appeal and not just limited appeal to one wing of his party or any party. The other thing, too, that I think has to be remembered, now it comes down to a ground game between the two of them. I think that riding off of the 2010 elections, riding off of the most recent recall elections, what you're going to have are both candidates who will have their supporters out en masse. You'll have the president that will be able to take advantage of, or Baldwin that will be able to take advantage of the president's popularity, certainly in the African-American community. But all Thompson has to do is peel off 10, maybe 12% of that vote, and he's your next senator. The reality is that ground games are now the focus of this election, and especially when you have it down to this kind of parity. And people who have a long, wide, full state remembrance of Tommy Thompson, I think he wins out.
Is he going to have a better ground game?
remembrance?
Widespread remembrance.
Is he going to have a better ground game? Well, look at it this way. He has the same campaign manager, Keith Jilks, who ran
Two successful
campaigns for Scott Walker. You have a wide enthusiasm gap now between the two parties.
Oh, it's
it
not
has
wide
been a
enthusiasm gap.
year of one conservative victory after another. I can't see a state that went for Governor Walker not once but twice suddenly sending Tammy Baldwin into a U.S. Senate seat. I don't think Governor
It happened when we had a Democrat as governor and we had Republicans elected to the Senate.
It wasn't the same context. It wasn't the same context at all.
It wasn't.
Of course it is.
And I will say this. I didn't think Tommy Thompson, our good friend, did very well last night. However, having said that, Tammy Baldwin did worse. At least Tommy Thompson is proud of his record, will talk about it over and over again and defend it strongly. Tammy Baldwin doesn't want to talk about her tax and spend record that also includes, you want to talk about foreign policy, at least Tommy Thompson got rid of that stock. Tammy Baldwin will not return the $60,000 from a pro-Iranian group that doesn't support sanctions.
And
All
at
right,
least
next
Tammy
topic.
Baldwin wasn't booed by the crowd like the governor.
Well, that doesn't, look, who knows who was in that crowd?
Oh,
All right, next topic.
course.
Some troubling news from one Milwaukee public school this week. Police are called to a big early morning fight at Bayview Middle and High School. A huge police response, 22 squad cars, 29 cops, 30 kids arrested, some as young as 11 years old. How do you persuade children and their parents that this is a safe and effective school after something like this happens, Denise? I mean, it's a humongous job.
Well, let's get one fact straight. I was there. There were not 22 squad cars that were there. There were 22 school officers. They call them school resource officers who were there. And there were. But the reality of that is, even that said, that's a situation that should not have happened. I think the challenge that we have as a community is taking a look at what's happening to kids even before they come into the schoolhouse door. And it's a real challenge. We've got some children whose lives are so fragile that something that's said in jest to someone, something that someone says bumping somebody, sets these kids off in a way that most of us can't understand because of everything else that's going on in kids' lives. That said, there's no excuse for the behavior that 30 of the 1,500 kids at Bayview had. Let me say it one more time. 30 of the 1,500 kids at Bayview had. So the district is dealing with that issue, adding additional security. Those kids have been suspended. There's going to be every effort and every intention to make sure those kids do not come back to the school. Obviously they don't want to be there. They're more interested in fighting than being in school. But beyond that, what we have to do as a community is also take a look at the ways that we embrace our kids and the way that we treat our kids. These are critical issues that we have got to look at as a community. There's certainly things that a school district can do and a school district will do, but there's also the issue of what's happening to kids in our communities. How can we work as a community to help equip kids with the skills that they need so when these things happen, and when someone they feel has offended them or whatever may have happened, that's something that's still being investigated, they're able to have the skills necessary to deal with it, because there is absolutely, positively no excuse for the behavior of those 30.
That's the only thing you said right. Well, how can you downplay?
If you live across the
how can you
street,
downplay what happened?
How can you ignore the fact that you had 1,470 kids who had nothing to do with it?
If you live across
does this
the
happen
street-
in Greendale, Greenfield, Brown Deer?
I don't know if it
where
does
they have the
or
same
doesn't.
number of kids.
I don't know if it does or doesn't. But I do know. But Kevin, it's absolutely. What was the word I was going to use? It's ridiculous to say, and for you to insinuate that I was saying that this behavior is anything less than acceptable. It's also ridiculous not to ignore. Excuse me, I did not.
You used that word several times.
Did I not say there is no excuse to the behavior of these kids? You got to listen with both ears, Kevin, not just one.
Well,
and you also have to realize.
Insulting
and you
Denise
also have
Callaway
to realize.
the last 2 weeks is back, but you cannot downplay
It's not
this.
insulting.
And
It's fact-based, Kevin, and that's why you don't recognize it when it happens.
Here's my solution, and I know it
You
won't
have a
go anywhere,
solution?
but
Wow.
you know what? I feel for those 1,200 other kids at Bayview that don't want to get in fights, that do want to come to school, that do want to learn, and I say get rid of those 30, kick them out for good, and let's concentrate on the kids that want to come to school.
Did you not
and
hear
learn.
any of it? You weren't listening, because I just said those kids have been suspended.
I was
crying out
listening.
loud.
and you have a daughter who's in grade school who next year could move into Bayview Middle and High School. Would you send her there or not?
Well, I think more and more that group of 30 is playing into the hands of those who have been advocating for Bayview to be more exclusionary geographically. They would prefer that it be a concentrated neighborhood school, and whatever great programs Bayview would have to offer would then be denied to kids who come from other parts of the city. That, and the reality that so much effort, Denise's effort, the superintendent's effort, the school principal, you saw 2 elected officials in the news conference, all this effort that's being put into dealing with 30, when that 1,500 that's left don't get the deserved attention that they need to have,
Is part of the answer to
or the
make-
resources that they should be able to get because of the time and the other things that you have to put into addressing the needs of that 30.
Is part of the answer to go back in the time tunnel and make it a neighborhood school again?
No, it's not. The schools in this community need to be diverse and need to be able to educate all children. That is when the backlash from something like this leads to the kinds of suggestions that Kevin makes about how this doesn't happen out in white suburbia. That suggests that we just write off black kids or we write off Latino kids, and an educational system can never do that. No, you didn't. But the people who don't want this to be a diverse school, who want it to be an all-white neighborhood school, they are certainly bringing that up. They blame all the trouble on the outsiders. And as a matter of fact, the trouble goes always. And the school system, my heart goes out to them, has to learn and has to teach all children and learn how to do it. And the idea that, well, we'll just throw these kids out and not worry about whether they get an education, whether their lives ever change for the better, that doesn't answer anything.
In the 80s, there was a great suggestion to take those kids and
those kids that disrupt, put them in a school for disruptive students who don't want to behave, and I think that's a great idea. And I wish that
a segregated school.
Once again, because you're not aware of the facts, we do have alternative programs where those kids who do have difficulty handling themselves in a regular school situation are placed.
Last topic. Newsweek magazine said this week that they are ending the print version of their magazine starting in January. They will only be an online magazine. Is this another sign that, print is dead, like everybody says? 5 years from now, when you walk into the grocery store, will there be a magazine rack and a newspaper rack, or is everything going to be online?
I don't think so, because...
No Inquirer?
Playboy? Absolutely.
Well, say that way.
Well, if you're talking, and in this case it was Newsweek, it's very difficult for a newsy magazine, a weekly, to stay timely when you have all of this information at your disposal instantly. So their circulation has gone from 3.1 million in 2000 to about 1.5 million today. The handwriting was on the wall. I think this is just the beginning. I think that you're going to see more of these magazines go by the wayside. To succeed as a magazine, you have to be a feature-y magazine. The most popular feature-y magazine is one that I know none of us read, the AARP magazine. but that's what you need to be.
They can't figure out how to get online.
And I think daily newspapers are going to suffer the same fate. And if they decide that we're going to start charging for our product online, that's the final nail in the coffin.
Only 30 seconds. Are newspapers going to survive?
Newspapers already are starting to go the same direction. One of the newspapers that runs my column is now only online. I think this is a major shift. I heard all my career that this was going to happen, and it finally is happening, that there would be some way to customize the news you get. The paper is going away for both magazines and newspapers.
All right, back to the presidential race for just a minute. The second debate was very different from the first in its tone and in the instant poll results. President Obama may have won it, but Mitt Romney definitely came up with the evening's most memorable phrase. And for writing and editing consultant Rick Horowitz, it was an invitation he just couldn't refuse. Rick.
Once upon a Massachusetts in the year 2002, went chasing after votes until I got 'em. As the Bay State's newest governor, I had a job to do, so I looked those girlies over top to bottom. I've got binders full of women and an aching in my heart, just trying to woo the ladies, but I don't know where to start. Now I'm sitting in my mansion all alone and feeling blue, but I got a perfect opening for you. I'm severely what I need to be to lead the GOP. When it comes to sex and stuff, there ain't no budging. On the other hand, the center lane's the road to victory, so it's time to dial it back and do some fudging. I've got binders full of women and help wanted in my soul. There's a job that needs a fill-in, there's a gap in every poll, so I'll court that female gender, they deserve a second look, and I'll let them go home early just to cook. Now I'm running for the biggest job, the toughest in the land, but unless I turn the tide, I'm underwater. So I'll show my inner softy till you offer me your hand. What the heck, I'll even interview your daughter. I've got binders full of women and a buzzing in my brain and a little dab of estrogen to wash away the bane. Showing off my femininity, adios my macho pals. 'Cause I see, well, golly gee, we need some gals. 'Cause you see, hey, vote for me, I'm great with gals. 'Cause you see, what's OBG? I'm hot for gals. 'Cause you see, it's plain to see, I'm great for gals.
Well, thank you, Rick, and thank you so very much for watching. Stay warm, stay dry, enjoy the rest of your weekend.